Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ron Hasn't Seen. This week we're going to be talking about Memento. I know I always do spoilers on this channel, but I want to do a little bit more of a real, this is going to be a full spoiler warning because this is a mystery movie, this is film noir, and so there's a little more to a spoiler, and honestly, that's why I haven't seen this movie until now. Back when it first came out on the festival circuit, one of my friends happened to go see it at Sundance and came back and told me, hey, I just saw this great movie, Memento. It's this, murder mystery, but it's told in reverse, and blah, blah, blah. And then he finally, at the end, he just says, and then he turns out he killed his wife. And that kind of ruined the movie for me in my mind. And that's why I hadn't seen it till now. So I don't even know where to begin with Memento, and I think that's kind of apt given, the structure of the movie. The movie's told backwards in some sections and forward in some other, and I kind of didn't really understand that. I thought there were separate phone calls. Well, the black and white sections are told chronologically. The color sections are told in chunks where you see one chunk, and then next time you see one, it goes back and tells you what happened before, then leading up to the chunk that we just saw, and that's the scene-by-scene progression backwards, interspliced with these stories that Leonard's telling on the phone, which are in black and white and in sequence. I didn't quite pick up on that until I read about it, but it makes total sense to me. So, Memento came out, premiered, I believe, in the Venice Film Festival in November of 2000, after being shopped around for a little bit, hadn't picked up a distributor, went through the festival circuit and really made a big hit at Sundance, where it still didn't get a real distributors, despite Ned Miramax passed, Steven Soderbergh really wanted to push the movie, but nobody would pick it up because of the narrative structure. Even though it was getting rave reviews from everybody, nobody thought it would really sell. So Newmarket, the production company, ended up distributing it itself, and then it came out March 16th, 2001. Peaked at a total of 531 theaters in the US, with a total of about $39.7 million worldwide on its release on a $9 million budget. So, movie was an indie success to a certain extent, but it really began to snowball and become this kind of cult following on DVD, and of course blew up Christopher Nolan, who within a couple of years was directing Batman movies and The Dark Knight, and Inception and Interstellar and all these movies that have become real event films based on his name alone. Yeah, the story came from Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan driving across country, pitching each other's stories, and Jonathan pitched the story to Christopher. What later went on to write it as a short story, Memento Mori, and it is credited that way in the film that it's based off that short story, but that short story didn't exist at the time of writing the film, and it was Nolan who decided to take the film and turn it backwards. He wrote a 300-page script, which apparently included a lot of full blocking, camera movement, almost like a novel version of a script, and shopped it around to the actors. Originally, Guy Pearce's character, Leonard Shelby, was supposed to be played by Brad Pitt, but he became unavailable. Carrie-Anne Moss as Natalie was cast because of The Matrix, and Joey Pantoliano's character, Joey Pants, Teddy, was at one point supposed to be Dennis Leary, but also became unavailable, and it was Carrie-Anne Moss who suggested him to be on the set. So those are the three main leads. There's some other actors that we'll see Nolan reuse. Mark Boone Jr., who would later show up in the Batman movies, as well as Thomas Lennon, who was the Doctor, would play another Doctor again later in the Batman movies. He's known for Reno 911 and a bunch of other things, going all the way back. For me, I knew him all the way back in the day in The State, which was a sketch comedy show that originally aired on MTV in the early 90s. If you haven't seen it, It's worth checking out. It is a time capsule of that kind of weird sketch comedy, but I think it's on Paramount Plus, so you could really on the MTV section, so you could really check it out and see some good classic comedy. So the story follows Leonard or Lenny trying to hunt down the man who he thinks killed his wife, John G or James G. Uh, he was attacked. His wife was he and his wife were attacked in their home. He was knocked unconscious and now can no longer make new memories. And this is a real form of amnesia that exists, and it this movie got a lot of praise for being kind of realistic with its portrayal of amnesia, as opposed to I just forgot everything in the past. This is a real form of amnesia that does exist, and one of the actors who plays Sammy Jenkins, Stephen Tobolowsky, one of the reasons he got the part is when he auditioned for Nolan, he talked about, I had this kind of amnesia temporarily after a surgery where they gave me a type of anesthesia so I wouldn't remember it, and it stuck around a little too long. It was an experimental thing, and apparently he would just be doing something like going to the bathroom and he can't remember if he went in, if he still had to go, or he had already gone, and he tells a story of where his wife shouted at him, you went 10 minutes ago. You've just been standing there. So that kind of amnesia is real, and it was played in the movie where Lenny is hunting down his wife's killer through a series of notes, Polaroids with notes on them, and the tattoos he would get for things he didn't want to forget. He has it across the chest, who killed him. He has notes on his legs, the facts on his arm, different things he wants to remember are permanently adhered to him. Why he's on the case. He's got trust this woman when he's got a picture of Natalie, or Teddy's Polaroid says don't believe his lies. And this is his system to remember things going forward. And he talks about he learned this system from this character, Sammy Jenkins, who he had previously investigated in his former life. And then we go through the movie finding backwards of how we got to the point where Lenny has killed Teddy. And you find out, Teddy was really another one of these John G, James G characters. And it goes back where the whole movie you were trying to figure out where this goes, and the backwards narrative is the story of the movie. And that's what made it famous and what made it still talked about this day. And it's something that is unique. I mean, nonlinear storytelling is a thing, but it's often either just flashbacks or a series of vignettes. Not this story that's literally told scene by scene, but projected backwards. So at the very end of the movie, we find out Teddy has been a cop who's been pushing Lenny this whole time to find different John G's or James G's that he couldn't arrest, or he wants to, steal the drug money from and all that. And that Lenny had killed the real James G who attacked him years ago, but it was really Lenny who killed his wife by forgetting he kept giving her insulin injections. And this whole story he played out in his mind talking about Sammy Jenkins. And Lenny tells him, Sammy never did these things. Sammy never had a wife. You're doing this, and you projected it on him so you could tell your story. So we're left with the impression that there really was a Sammy who maybe had been faking this amnesia as opposed to really having it. And that's the plot of the movie, but it's really mystery after mystery. And you notice little things throughout, like Lenny's suit doesn't fit right. Why is he wearing this? How did he get here? And you get each mystery solved in each little vignette, almost like an episode of Lost, where it tells you something and then you have to figure you have another thing, but still the story's going backwards. And would this movie be as famous if it had been told in a normal order? No, I think it was still a good noir story, but I don't think it would be as groundbreaking. And Nolan is known for playing with time. I mean, Tenet and Interstellar talk about the very nature of time. itself and how we play with it, and the same concept of time dilation going into, how the different layers of the mind work in Inception. So it's something he really seems interested in. Yeah, so the main reason I didn't see it is I knew the ending, but after having watched this movie, I don't think it mattered. Uh, I mean, the ending was the beginning. It's so hard to describe this movie in these words, but it's masterfully told. It's well acted. You see the hints of things to come, like in the movie. Then I've watched some things where it talks about they play with different things in memories. Like the license plate changes from like 7-1U to 7IU. Dates on some of documents that Lenny's reading are impossible, like February 29th, 1997 or something like things that just don't work. And I really like that, and I really didn't notice that when I was watching it for this first time, but it's something I do want to watch this movie again and go back and see these things and try and make these connections. There is a remake supposedly in the works by Ambi Pictures. It's been stalled. The last we heard was about 5 years ago, so hopefully it's completely stalled and dead. I don't think this movie needs to be remade. I don't think it could be improved by any kind of new filming techniques or any kind of CG or anything like that. It's a nouveau noir, and it's a story that's unique in the way it's told. There was an Indian version made in 2014 called Genie or something. I'm not sure how to pronounce the Hindi word, but it's supposedly that was a remake of this. Other references I've seen to this is if anybody's familiar with the kids show Bluey, there's an episode called Chicken Rat that's told in this style. And even without seeing this movie and watching Bluey with my daughter, I always refer to that as the Memento episode, where they're trying to solve the mystery of where a toy went, but it's how the kids were playing. They were telling it like a minute in each room of the house, going back, trying to find this toy. And it really is the only other thing I've ever seen completely play off this movie like that. I just really, really love this movie. And I regret, and even more than like something like Shawshank, which I put off for stupid reasons, I really regret not having watched this for kind of ridiculous reasons. And I really want to watch it again because there's supposedly like Fight Club references in here. There's a scene in one of the flashbacks where Lenny's describing Sammy's condition, where Sammy's shown being in a mental institute because he can't live his day-to-day life anymore. And there's a frame where it flips Sammy's face for Lenny's, like the inserts of Tyler Durden in Fight Club. And given that Brad Pitt was supposed to play the part at one point, were these intentional? I think it's Natalie's number is the same as Marla's number in Fight Club. There's some really cool references, and I mean, Fight Club would have been a new thing at, like when this was being made, Other real cool references. I kind of thought that the actor I mentioned who played Sammy, Steven Tobolowsky, I recognized him from Groundhog's Day, and he plays Ned Ryerson, the insurance salesman. And I love the fact that he's in like it, and it's another kind of time loop thing where these kind of unintentional things kind of add up to make this movie seem even more epic than what it was. I can't go step by step with the plot because of the way it's told, and there are edits of this movie that are done chronologically. Like some of the, I believe, European releases of the DVD had it where you could watch it in the way it was intended or watch it chronologically. And as I said, I think chronologically you're really going to lose something. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. I don't think it would be. But it's just not what this movie was. I mean, closest thing I can think of is like Pulp Fiction, but that's a series of vignettes that add up to a larger story that are told out of order. And I know some people never really got that, and some people never really got this. Probably about the time this came out, when I was in college, I actually got a call from my mother at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And of course, you get a call from your mom at 1 o'clock in the morning. You think somebody's dead. No, she had just watched Pulp Fiction that night and didn't understand it and couldn't sleep and asked me to explain to her. And then I just told her, it's out of order. And she's like, oh, okay, that's fine. And hung up, and I went back to bed. But yeah, so that's the closest thing I can think of to like being told out of order. I mean, flashbacks go all the way back, Citizen Kane and before, but not quite like this. Nothing is just a series of reverse storytelling, and you can't do it again because you're just going to be seen as ripping this off. I think, as I said, like things will reference it and stories will tell it, but jumping back and forth and having the two timelines, one going forward in black and white and one going reverse in color, and finally meeting at a point where everything makes sense. It's an amazing narrative, and this was Nolan's second film. He had done a real independent, like Clerks, Paranormal Activity level budget, like just a couple $1,000, called The Following, that came out in '98. He then did Insomnia in 2002, which then led into Batman Begins, The Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and coming out this year is Oppenheimer. But other than like the Batman movies, everything else plays a little bit with time. I mean, even Dunkirk, which is just beyond my 5-year rule for not spoiling, I think I'm going to do on this show, has some time-bending elements to it that you don't realize till the end. I'm just going to gush about this movie, and I'm just going to say, if you haven't seen it, I don't care if it's been spoiled for you. Just watch it. If you're into mid to late 90s indie movies, if you're into film noir, if you're into detective stories, if you're just into good acting with a good story, just watch this. Well, that's my review of Memento. I'm going to be able to scratch it off this poster finally. And thank you guys for watching. Ron Hasn't Seen. Next week, for my February movies, I'm starting working on Oscar winners I haven't seen, like Best Pictures. And the next one is going to be the Alfred Hitchcock Rebecca. Looking forward to talking about that. Once again, thank you guys for watching. If you like what I'm doing here, subscribe. If you have any comments, please comment down below. I really, want to hear some feedback on this channel. All right, thank you guys, and have a good night.